The Shining is one of the best films ever made, and although it's been rightfully praised for its cinematography, pacing, and detailed set design, very few have analyzed or dissected the actual story. Maybe it's some sort of taboo to critique something that's so well made. Both the film and the novel are as good as it gets when it comes to fiction. The only problem is that the book, if copied directly to screenplay, can come across as more comical than scary. I personally think that the movie is far better than the book either way. Sorry, King. But for a story about 3 people in an empty hotel, film offers far more atmosphere and tension. If you want to look into what the book is like, watch the version of The Shining that was actually written by King himself. All I can say is get ready for hours of talking, overdramatic acting, a fire hose with teeth, and a man in a ridiculous werewolf mask.
No one gets past Rover.
I understand that movies and books have different ways of building tension and delivering scares, but King has some nerve saying that he doesn't like Kubrick's adaptation of his book, and then he answers with this. The fact that the 2 men had such dramatically different visions for what the book should look like on film raises an interesting question. Is King's book and Kubrick's film even the same story? Besides the environment and characters, is the actual plot of the book and the film the same? I'll assume that you've already seen the movie, but if it's been a while since your last viewing, I can summarize the plot in a few lines. A family of 3 move into an empty hotel to act as the groundskeepers while it's shut down for the winter. The son has a powerful psychic ability that allows him to see terrifying visions and apparitions. The father starts to behave strangely, and he too begins to see ghosts and have terrifying visions. He quickly descends into madness and is influenced by the hotel to kill his family. This started as a theory, but with each viewing, I started to see that more and more questions that I had actually had answers, if I was just willing to look past my expectation of what the film should be about. Although the book and the film are practically the same, meaning the characters, environment, and basic plot points are all the same, there are some small changes that make the film a completely different story. The most obvious difference is that in the book there's ghosts, and in the film there's not. That's right, there are no ghosts, or spirits, or demons, or haunted hotel in The Shining. It was a single page of Jack's manuscript that sparked the realization for what this movie was really about, and why Jack seemed to descend into madness in such a short time for no apparent reason. Every shot in The Shining is very deliberate and essential to pushing the story forward, so when I noticed this page, I couldn't resist the allure of seeing where it might lead to. Do you see it? It says adult boy, and as the film goes on, you'll see Jack becomes exactly that. I can safely assume that all of you are familiar with the layout of a standard keyboard. If you were to type out this single line 1,000 times, there'd be no reason why you would add a T instead of a double L at the end of that word. In fact, there's no reason for your fingers to be anywhere near a T at that part of the sentence, even by accident. For a mistake like this to happen 3 times on one page and no other means Kubrick put it there on purpose. And if you have a sharp enough eye, you'll see the book Wendy's reading is The Catcher in the Rye. And what is that book about? It's about a boy who doesn't want to grow up. The movie is presented in a way that's supposed to make Jack out to be the villain and Danny out to be the victim, but this couldn't be further from the truth. The film follows Jack and Danny as they both suffer through identical issues on opposite sides of the spectrum. Jack struggles with his loss of power as his desire for isolation grows, and Danny fights to understand his growing power as he desperately searches for connection. Although unintentional, it's Danny that's the true villain of the film. Let's look at what Jack has been writing. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. That single sentence explains everything we need to know about Jack's mental state. The first thing that stands out is Jack's self-label of boy. But the sentence as a whole is a cry for help. A cry for a break from his all work and no play adult life. If we combine this with his careless behavior, we can easily see that Jack, a man around 30, is overwhelmed with responsibility and yearns for a chance to be free, a chance to be a child again, a chance to be an adult physically, and a boy psychologically. Jack is struggling with the pressures of adulthood, alcohol addiction, and his own misunderstood shine powers. Danny is a powerful telepath that is unknowingly pushing his father deeper into confusion and internal conflict, and eventually to the point of a full nervous breakdown. Now, if I were to tell you that Danny likes to play with toys inside of the house, talk to his imaginary friend, is afraid of scary ghosts, and likes to wander the halls exploring the Overlook Hotel, you would say that he's behaving the way a child should. Funny thing is, the description I just gave doesn't only pertain to Danny. Jack too likes to play with toys inside of the house, talk to his imaginary friend, is afraid of scary ghosts, and likes to wander the halls exploring the Overlook Hotel. He also recites nursery rhymes, sleeps in late, throws tantrums, cheats on his wife, drinks and parties. He's turned into a child. He has no rent, no bills, no chores, no parental obligations, and no responsibilities. Wendy, on the other hand, is the epitome of a responsible adult and a supportive wife and mother. Whenever we see her, she's working, cooking, cleaning, checking the boiler, maintaining emergency contacts with the outside world, playing with and taking care of Danny, and taking care of Jack as well. I bring this up because Jack, in all of his childlike freedom, complains about being so overwhelmed by responsibility.
Ever thought about my responsibilities? If I were to fail to live up to my responsibilities? Shoveling out driveways, working a car wash.
Despite Wendy doing 100% of the work and giving him the freedom to write and play all day. We're supposed to believe that Jack is being influenced by the spirits of the hotel, but it's actually the Shining that's responsible for this. We never actually see Jack drunk or drinking, but we're told that he's short-tempered and irritable when he does drink. We learn in Dr. Sleep, the sequel to the Shining novel, that Danny develops an addiction to alcohol as an adult. He drinks because alcohol numbs the effects of his shine abilities. The only reason I'm referencing the books is because this gives a context to why Jack drinks. He's trying to stop the terrible images that he sees. Jack's powers are shown in a way that could be mistaken as proof of ghosts in the hotel, but if you pay close attention, we see that Jack has visions of the future, strong hallucinations, mental projections, and even telekinesis. These are all powers that we see Danny display as well, in the exact same way. When Dick Halloran first meets Danny, he explains the shine and how his grandmother taught him about his exceptional ability. Jack has lived his entire life and never had anyone explain this to him, so he has no idea where the source of these strange mental images come from. Jack's unaware that it's actually Danny projecting strong feelings of fun, freedom, and lack of responsibility, and this is what sends him spiraling into madness. Whenever we see Danny having fun, Jack is visibly unhappy. Let's talk about Jack's imaginary friend, Delbert Grady. In the opening interview scene, Jack is told about the last man who stayed in the hotel as a caretaker, and how he went insane and killed his entire family. You might not think that this story is very important, or that it has any greater significance than exposition, but let's ask a few questions about Mr. Delbert Grady. If Grady was the first person to lose his mind from the hotel's evil influence, what images and ghosts did he see? Shouldn't there be a long list of tragedies in the hotel with each caretaker? Why would the previous caretaker of the hotel be reincarnated as a ghost butler in a party full of 1920s ghosts? Grady died shortly before the story begins, sometime in the late 1970s. A caretaker is not a servant. Their job is to take care of the building, not the hotel's guests. Grady would have been in an empty hotel, just like our current story, so when did he become a butler? The answer is simple. Grady is Jack's version of Tony. He's all in Jack's mind. When Jack first speaks with Grady, he's strangely facing a mirror. This is the same thing we see with Danny and Tony. In fact, we see Jack speak to Grady a second time, and he's facing a reflective surface once again. This is because Grady is the part of Jack's mind that wants to be free, and he's helping to ease Jack into a difficult decision. Grady is literally the polar opposite of Jack, a perfect yin and yang. Jack is dressed comfortably with jeans, boots, and a casual jacket. Grady is dressed in a uniform, stiff and uncomfortable. Jack's face is expressive and his attitude amused. Grady is expressionless and monotone with a bored attitude. Grady is the side of Jack that is responsible and unhappy, while the Jack we see at this moment is slowly becoming happier and less responsible. Grady tells Jack that he killed his wife and daughters because of responsibility. And now that they're gone, he's free to truly enjoy his life. This is what Jack wants, to stay in the Overlook Hotel forever and be a child, free from the pressures of the outside world and the responsibility of being an adult, father, and a husband. And what is Danny doing during this conversation? The same thing that he's always doing when Jack is distressed or seeing ghosts. He's having a seizure, or in an unresponsive state chanting the word red rum over and over. I'll explain red rum more when we discuss Danny, but it's important to pay attention to where Jack is receiving this message to murder his family from. It's coming from a reflection. And what do things look like in a reflection? Backwards. So Jack is unknowingly projecting this message to Danny in the same way that he's seeing it, backwards, and in a reflection. It's no coincidence that Jack likes to drink and party. These things represent fun and freedom, and the only person in the hotel to desire either of these things happens to be the only person that can see this party environment. Red is a very important color in the film. It represents youth, fun, and lack of responsibility. Danny is the youngest and least responsible person in the film, and he's always wearing red. The only exception being when he enters room 237 and has a traumatic experience. But even then he's playing in a red patch of carpet before entering the room. Wendy wears red whenever she's with Danny, and no red when she's working or being an adult. Jack starts off wearing nothing red, but after he puts on his red jacket, he begins to behave more irresponsibly and never takes the jacket off again. Whenever Jack is having fun, there's an abundance of red. The red chairs in the party stand out against the gold backdrop. The bartender's jacket is red, and the bathroom where Jack and Grady speak is unusually red for an historic hotel with a classier design in the main areas. Last but not least is the red liquid that spills from the elevator. I say red liquid because this isn't blood. If you can accept that red represents youth, fun, and lack of responsibility, as I've just shown, you can easily conclude that in Danny's vision, he's seeing Jack's mental projection of his desires. And what are the two things that Jack desperately desires? Alcohol and freedom. Alcohol is liquid, and freedom is, as I've just explained, red. So Danny is misinterpreting Jack mentally losing the battle with these two desires, and his sanity is literally bursting at the seams to have alcohol and freedom. It took some time for me to decide how I wanted to present this to you. I figured that since the story was divided into the struggles of Jack and Danny separately, I would present the idea to you in the same way. In part 2, I'll explore all of the supposed ghosts in the hotel, the twins, skeletons, the bloody-faced butler, and the costumed sex couple, as well as the villain of The Shining, Danny Torrance.